Hello and welcome to another episode of Brand Retro. Today on the podcast I have Behdad, and I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm going to let you do it, but you are from CJAM Marketing, correct?
Yes, and the last name goes by Jamshidi, and on the call we can call me B as for my nickname, just to make your life easier.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you. So CJAM Marketing is something that it's really interesting, and you and I had talked before, we'd met before, talked a little bit about it. It's a very unique model in the fact that you're kind of brokering the work, you're building the relationships, and you're kind of bringing those solutions to the people that in need. And what I like about that is we do something similar with that with our company, but we also are a growing team. We actually keep a lot of the task oriented pieces of that in-house, where you're just building those relationships and kind of shepherding the work to get completed. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's very accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that model and how you came to that. Did you learn the hard way enough times where you're like, I just don't want to deal with it? Or how did you get there?
It's a good question. And I think that kind of aligns with what I originally started out doing. Like, most people don't know that I'm an engineer by trade. And so I worked in a bunch of different roles, from like programming and stuff like that. But the most recent one that I did was I was working as a sales engineer. And so I used to work for a big telecom company on the B2B side of things, and working with different size businesses in the mid-market space, typically 50 to 1,000 type employee range, talking to C-level executives, IT, understanding what's going on in businesses, and then building out roadmaps for them, how to get from A to B to C, which funny was like a skill set that I ended up using in my business now, right? So that kind of established a foundation of like business consulting, sales, leadership, and technology. And then on the marketing side, about 5 years ago, I started building out websites, Google Ads, SEO for businesses. And I just honestly really hated doing 80-hour websites on the weekend. I was like, I get paid way too well as a sales engineer to do this, and started looking for partners to work with. And as I did that, I started noticing kind of two things. Marketing agencies didn't really understand business, and business people didn't really understand marketing. And so there's always this like gap and this communication error where marketing agencies are trying to speak the business language, but they don't, and businesses can't speak and vice versa. And then you'd see agencies pick up work that they shouldn't pick up. And so that drove me nuts for a while, right? Like, someone's really good at like branding and websites, but they shouldn't be picking up the Google Ads or the SEO, for example, because it's not a core competency. And so I ended up thinking, what if I built out a network of people that I trust? I'll talk to businesses, see what they need, and then basically match them with the partners that make the most amount of sense. Thinking I only needed to talk to 10 partners and I'd solve all the world's problems. To this day, I've talked to over 762 different marketing agencies and partners, and basically built a list of about 90 plus partners that I work with. And that's kind of how I got into this, and just getting better and better over time.
Yeah, it's not that foreign of a concept to think about finding people who are really good at something and just going to them for that one thing. When you say that, people are like, duh, that makes sense. However, most agencies try to be all things to all people. And I don't know if from a client perspective, if they just don't kind of think about that, or if they just think that agency is going to deliver everything at the same level. But I'm with you in the fact that as agencies, I think we do try to take on too much sometimes, but I think it's important to just really, focus on what you're good at and lead with that. It's not that you can't supplement with other things, but from a client perspective too, I think you should seek those people who are really good at it, or ask those questions to somebody like me or you to say, hey, do we have to, does it have to be a one-stop shop, or can we go to, can we find the best available? And, for somebody to be out there educating them and guiding them through that process, I think that is huge. And also, and I'll let you respond to this piece, is that what's hard is like, there's so many things happening to stay up on it all and to really be fluent in it all. It's really hard when you're in the industry.
Yeah.
So being a customer and not knowing how all these dots connect, what the buzzwords are, the implications of platform changes to SEO to, you name it. How do you deal with that and trying to help clients understand and even attempt to kind of keep up with all these changes?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think I'm in a unique position because I get to work with a lot of different partners and experts. And so I can ask questions and they're going to answer, because they're like, hey, we've been doing TikTok for the last 2-3 years. I'm like, well, what have you learned? Because the more that I know, the better I can educate my customers before they're working with you. And so it's kind of funny. Like, all the stuff that I've learned in marketing outside of like the courses and stuff that I've taken is like a lot just learning from the experts that I talk to. Like when you talk to however many people, 762 different agencies, you have a book where you can reach out to people like, hey, what's happening in this space? What's shifting over here? What's happening with TikTok shops? Like, like all these things, you get a little bit more insight in. So you become kind of like this like center of knowledge of like what works and what doesn't work. And not even just on the agency side, but also on like the customer side, right? Like talking to customers and seeing what worked, what didn't work, how their e-commerce business has been growing while others have been shrinking. Like, and a lot of the times you start realizing like, oh, there's like these little things that people are doing a little bit differently, right? They do all the foundational stuff that like maybe someone heavily invested into SEO, 5 years ago, and all of a sudden the helpful content update like boosted things up. Like there's no right way of doing marketing at the end of the day. It's just like figuring out what works for the business and choosing different channels and having a strategy and kind of running with it and just going with the ebbs and flow of things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that and tell me if you agree, but you have to remain nimble. I mean, because it changes all the time, and I think you got to kind of stay in step with things and be ready to kind of evolve when the platforms and kind of the whole game evolves. But at the same time, I think you have to be consistent. You have to have a plan. You have to kind of be vested so that you're going to, keep plugging away and keep going. One of the things I see that just kills, just completely kills any effort or any kind of strategy or any kind of plan is the start and stop. Start and stop. I'm going to wait. Call me in 6 months. Hey, I really want to do this now. It's that start and stop and those expectations of, giving yourself the illusion that you can slow it down or speed it up when you feel like it. That's not how it works.
Yeah, no, we're on the same page on that. It's a lot of the times people just stop because they're like, oh, we tried this for 3 months and it didn't work. It's like, yeah, but like also what level did you try it at? And also like you need to give marketing a lot of time. It's what we saw during COVID where you like put money in, you get money out, like that environment has fully shifted and it's gone back to the old way of, okay, how do I create a flywheel? How do I create a brand? How do people trust me so that they come to me and buy? And then how do I build the systems to continuously be in front of my customers, right? Like you need to have more aspects of the funnel dialed in now to actually help your business grow. And a lot of that takes time because it takes time for the flywheel to take effect. It could take years before you really see like measurable results. I had a customer that spent 12 years building out his SEO. In the last 2 years, it's like doubled and then doubled and doubled. And we're talking like 3 million plus people going to his website at a time. 12 years. And still spends about $12,000 a month in SEO just for that cost, right? So it's the people that like know the marketing strategy, know the channels that they want to focus on, are changing with the channels as they're going, and then get to hit that flywheel where they get to reap the rewards of it.
Yeah. I always give the example to people of, when you start the new year, everybody's got this crazy fitness goal and they're all going to hit the gym. It's like asking a personal trainer, like, when should I expect my abs to show up? And it's like, well, depends. Like the diet, the exercise, how often are you coming in? How hard are you working? There's a lot of factors. And it's like, well, how does that work? Like when will they show up? And it's like, well, you don't know that. But you got to commit to it. You got to do it. And you have to probably make some adjustments along the way. And you have to be committed to the whole process. First of all, to even give yourself a chance. Yes. But what day they actually show up in the mirror, hard to say. But when they do, you'll be glad you put all that work in.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to kind of put it in that framework because we want to believe that marketing is absolutes, that if I, like you said, if I put $5 in, I'll get $10 out. And it's like, it's not that easy. It could happen. You might wake up one day where you put 5 in, you get 25 out. But how long is it going to last? And is it repeatable? And like, there's a lot of factors, but you never even get there if you don't have a plan or a plan of execution to go with it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I mean, I like that abs analogy because like part of me wants to add to that analogy and just say, what if it never shows up? What if the abs never show up? But you still have all this extra energy and you still feel better and you're better than you were before. You might not have gotten to that end goal, but like just doing this stuff is going to give you these like rewards and things that you would have never known without going through the process, right?
100%.
Yeah. And then on the marketing front, the other addition of it is like, sure, you might figure out a certain channel, right? Like, and all of a sudden it does give you that, 5-to-1 on your money. And then 6 months later, it won't because you've used it up and you've tapped it out. And now you have to figure out something else. Like a lot of people think that marketing, once it's there, it's done. It's like, no, that's just the beginning. You have to then maximize that, then redistribute that to other channels so that you're basically diversifying where your customers are coming from. And you see that with a lot of the business that I work with, right? Like they're like, we started out with Google and Facebook ads and made a good ROI. But now we shifted to live events and now we're doing this webinar and now we're doing that. And like that's the way like a business can truly scale, is when you do get to maximize on a channel and diversify to others and allow those to kind of get maximized. So if one goes down, one goes up, like you're always kind of stable. And then that's kind of where things go.
Yeah. And I think that's important to note as well, because as many variables as there are to just craft that marketing plan, that strategy, the audience, the brand, like there's all these pieces on our side of the house. There's so many variables that have to be factored in to get it to work and get people to, even to put it out accurately and authentically, to get people to pay attention to it. Then on top of that, you have that world that you're trying to navigate that's a moving landscape. It's changing all the time. A lot of these platforms, to be honest, are working against you because they're trying to monetize, they're trying to figure themselves out. So like, if you think about that, like it's hard, and it's to embrace that and kind of enjoy the small victories and even consistency. Even like you said, if those abs never show up, but if I consistently feel better and I can consistently hold this line and I can consistently expect X, Y, and Z, just having that consistency established, that's a huge victory considering all the variables and movement that's happening around you. And I think it's important just to note that, because it's not only on our side of the equation where we have to drum up what the plan is, but it's the other side that's working against you that you have to try to navigate the entire time.
100%. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I think like out of businesses that do set aside a proper marketing budget and have a strategy and they follow with it, like they're going to be way better off than others that don't have that, right? Like if you're like, hey, look, every year we know that we have this marketing budget, regardless of if it wins or loses, like this is the budget we have, and we're going to consistently spend until we figure this thing out. Like you're light years ahead of 95% of businesses, because most are just throwing money in, hoping that it works. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, I'm going to stop. And just like you said, like it's the on and off, because they haven't thought about it of, okay, this is an actual expense to the business, right? Yeah, sure, it needs to return an ROI at some point, but it might not be in the first year, might not be in the second year. But you need to be following, keeping track, and just continuously spending money and just shifting that to make sense of it. And then over time, it'll work. Like you'll be better off than the businesses that are doing it the other way, which is on and off.
Yep. I was just going to say, the only other thing too is that depending on your industry, you might be light years ahead of everybody, because there's a lot of industries that just, birds of a feather flock together kind of a concept, where they all just believe it isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Or they all just believe that it doesn't work or whatever it is. Be the guy who says, well, you know what? If everybody else is going to say no, I'm going to be the one that says yes, and you will blow past the competition.
Oh, easily, especially in like the boring business space, which I love working in that space, right? Like the manufacturing, the construction, and all that stuff. Like so many people don't even think about it. I've had emails that come in and go, hey, B, someone recommended me to you. To be honest, the most I've thought about marketing was literally the time it took me to write this email. And this is like a 7-figure business, right? And they're just getting their marketing stuff started. But like right off the bat, like they are further ahead than 90 to 95% of the same type of companies that would never even write that email.
Right. And I know you get this, but I'm going to ask anyway. You probably also get those guys who say, I've never needed it. And they're kind of proud of the fact that like they're doing so well financially. The referrals are coming in. They're legitimately kicking ass on a daily basis. They're like, I've never had to spend money on marketing. And I laugh at that every time, because I'm like, that just means you're leaving probably twice as much on the table for not trying. Like, good for you to have what you have and not try.
Yeah.
But imagine if you tried.
100%.
Like, think about that.
Yeah. And then the thing I add on to that is like, okay, that's fine. But if you have like a terrible website and someone's referring business to you and that person goes and checks your website and decides not to talk to you, you're not tracking that, are you? Like, how do you track what you're losing?
Yeah. And I always think about, like, from a sports analogy, I think about like a Mickey Mantle or somebody like that who, look how good he was and didn't even try or take care of himself. He partied all night, drank every day, and never took a vitamin or hit the gym once. Look at how good he probably could have been. Like, in today's world, today's technology, today's diet, fitness. I mean, you think about that, it's kind of mind blowing, because it's like, well, how much better could he been? I
How much
mean,
potential is left on the table?
unreal. Just, but anyway, the point is like I get a lot of those situations like that too, where they're like, "Hey, we've never needed it."
Yeah,
I'm
and I
like,
mean,
you always need it. It's just a matter of whether or not you recognize what you're leaving on the table.
100%. And I think a lot of the times that I have conversations with those types of businesses, like that's why I talk to businesses on the front, because I want to know what your goals are. Like, what are the goals of your business and where are you trying to head? If your goal is, hey, we like our business the way it is and we want to keep it like level and just kind of do what we're doing and grow the 5% per year and we're doing that referrals, cool. Don't do marketing, like, because you don't want to scale up to the next level. You don't want to, that's totally fine. But as long as it aligns with your goal. But then you hear other ones where they go, well, we haven't been able to grow and we're trying to grow, but that kind of thing, and we want to get to this number. It's like, okay, well, you need to be doing marketing because you have no other option, because referrals aren't going to just be the thing, right? You're going to have to have an actual strategy. And it's not just digital marketing, right? Like, it could be a plan for how to go to conferences, a plan for how to get on PR, a plan for how to get speaking spots. Like, it's all these things that you can do that are all part of a marketing strategy that most people don't even think about, right?
Yeah. And I would even say that you have to have some sense of awareness around what it is today. So like you said, if you ask that client and say, hey, what's your goal? And they're like, we're good. We don't want to grow. We want to stay where we're at. Okay, so do you have some sense of clarity as to how you got there and how you're going to maintain that? Most of those clients will say, no, I mean, like, so it's like, okay, but here's the question then. What happens when things change or it starts to maybe scale back on you without you really knowing why?
Yeah.
If you have no sense of your foundation or no sense of how we even got here or no sense of how I even maintain it, man, you're in trouble. So you need to, even at minimum, if you don't want to grow, even at minimum, you should have some kind of a structure or a plan as to how to sustain it, because that's huge.
100%. Yeah. And that plan could literally just be like an email outreach plan or having your account managers follow up a certain way. Like,
Yeah, just a point of reference to go back to if something starts to slip on you.
that makes sense. That makes a
Yeah.
lot of
So
sense.
shifting gears a little bit, tell me about CJAM Marketing, what it looks like for somebody who's, if I'm your ideal customer, what does that look like and what's the process you walk me through?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always been a jack of all trades. I've always found interest in learning about a lot of different things, especially when I was used to work at the company I used to work at. I worked across all different types of industries. So I've always had a joy of just learning about businesses and different types of businesses. So in terms of kind of like people that work with me or people that are like kind of stuck, where they're like, we need to do something in marketing, whether they already know like which channel they want to go to, or they're just kind of at the point of strategy, you come to me, kind of tell me what they're looking for. And then on the front end, I basically go through a bunch of questions around the business, try to understand where they're headed, what they're trying to do, what the competition looks like, what they have currently in place, what their current team looks like, then build out a strategy and go, based on where you're at and what you're trying to do, here's how I would go about it. And here's the partners that I think would fit for what you're trying to do. Whether that's bringing in a fractional CMO to basically build out a marketing strategy, or maybe they're further ahead and they're just like, we need a solid Google Ads or SEO partner, for example, or a copywriter. At that point, I just basically go to my network, my black book, and go based on what this customer needs, their personality. Here's the people that I think fit. And then I share that with the customer. They look over the list, decide who they want to talk to, meet them, feel comfortable with them, sign with them. And that's basically how it works. It's like a matchmaking type white glove service.
How do you onboard them in a way that makes them relinquish the trust to you so that you can drive this accordingly? I ask this partially because we run into this a lot where, because they don't understand, they try to maintain maybe a little tighter grip on it than they should. And you kind of know where I'm going with this, but how do you handle that?
Yeah, so for me, my customers kind of know that they need to let go of it. They're like, this guy's talked to over like 760 agencies. Like, the likelihood is he's going to know more about what's going to make sense. And at the end of the day, they still do have control over who they choose to work with, because they get to meet the people And it has to fit for them too, right? And ultimately, whenever I'm doing a call with a customer, it's like really trying to understand the personality side of things. Like, are they going to want to have more influence on the project, or do they want an actual expert to take on and run with it? And so there's a lot of expectation setting on the front end to be like, look, do you want someone that's an expert and is going to run with it, or someone that's going to basically be working alongside of you and basically do what you tell them to do? And so you're trying to match the personalities a lot of the times. And I'm sure, like, probably as an agency owner, you don't get to choose the personalities that kind of come to you. For me, it's different because I have a list of, partners that I work with, and they all have different personalities, and I can actually match different personalities together, which is actually like half the battle. I would say even more than half the battle when you're matching partners together.
Yeah, you already kind of touched on it, but I think the thing that is important that we also run into as well is we try to meet them where they're at. So we have some clients that are more involved than others, and there's always a limit to how far they can be involved. But at the same time, we have some clients that are just, I don't care how you get there, just get there, and then we have some that, they know enough to be dangerous, but they just want to be involved.
Yeah.
I don't need to know how it's necessarily done, but just explain it to me so I can hear it. And, they just kind of want to be along for the ride. And I think that's important, especially with what we do, and specifically for you guys, is that, having somebody that's going to guide you through that, but also kind of let you know, and like, just trust me, I got this, that's huge. Because as you probably run into, marketing gets a bad rap sometimes. And especially if the client themselves has had a bad experience, we're the ones who are tasked with living that down or trying to explain our way out of the previous guy's shortcomings or whatever that is. So that trust and that, being able to kind of help them digest that in a certain way is huge. So kudos to you. And obviously anybody that's looking at working with you guys, that's huge, because you don't always get that at the agency level.
It's hard. Over the last month, I've turned away a lot of people because I'm like, look, you're not ready for what you're asking me for, and I don't think it's going to work. And people understand. Like, they're like, okay, well, we'll come back when we're ready to work with it. I'm like, that's cool, but here's like the steps that you need to take to kind of get to a level to get to that point where you want to go to. And not a lot of people will do that. Yeah. I don't want to see people fail.
Yeah, I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is that do you get a lot of those people that really appreciate the transparency? And I ask the question because we do. Like, very rarely does anybody get upset about it, but I don't think they always hear it, right? So they're a little maybe put off at first, like, what? Like, you're actually not gonna take my money? You're not gonna, like, they're confused by the honesty, but at the same time, I think once they kind of think about it, they're like, okay, this guy just did me a favor.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
It's such an interesting, like, there's times where I'm like, please, like, even though I'm not taking money, don't give anyone else your money. Like, I'm like, just don't do it yet. Like, do these things. I think some people, most people will appreciate the transparency no matter what, right? Like, because most people won't give it to them. But I have like a whole other like aspect of transparency on my business where I'm like, I'm not going to give you, like, even with the partners that I recommend, right? Like, I'm pretty good like 85% of the time. Like, that's much higher than a business would do on their own. But there are times where I fail too, like in making a connection, and I always want to be transparent. Like, and so even in like my messaging, I'm like, look, I've used this partner this many times. This is what they've done in the background, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think it's going to be a fit. But ultimately, I'm matching personalities together. I'm matching businesses together. Like, not everything goes well either. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I run my business, because I be so transparent with people. And I think some people, especially, like in the US, like, you want people like, yeah, we can do it. We can take care of it. We'll get this done. And people will sign with people like that versus someone be like, look, man, like, this is a hard thing to kind of find. But I think I have the, like, you know what I mean? Like, just being transparent and honest. Like, you're not saying I have it absolutely. You might lose some customers that way, and they might not find a chance because, like, this guy's not confident, he doesn't have a good network. But what they don't see is, I don't have the exact perfect fit for what you need, even after meeting 760 agencies, but I have someone that's like 85% of the way there. And for me, it's like, is this match gonna work? And that kind of honesty, like, that's just what makes me feel whole, because I don't want anyone ever to be like, B, you said something to me and this wasn't true, right? And that's the worst feeling for me. It like haunts me.
They're not gonna miss that. Like, that's the thing, is like, if you somehow accidentally implied a promise or a guarantee, they heard it, they caught it, and they don't forget that stuff. So, like, I'm very transparent and honest with my clients as well. And off off of something you said, like I have a kind of a hard rule that I don't bash other agencies. I don't bash their practices because I don't know the context of which how they got there. I have no idea. But I will if a client asks and say, "Well, so and so said they could guarantee this and they said this," and I will be honest at that point and say, "Well, I don't know what so and so is looking at, but there's no way they can guarantee that." And if on some planet they possibly could, that person would be so loaded it would blow your mind because nobody can guarantee that.
Nobody
So
can guarantee it.
just know, like, here's as much information as I can give you on the context, but no, nobody can guarantee that. I will hit them with that level of bluntness because I think they hear what they want to hear is my point. And sometimes in talking to other agencies or even maybe the hype videos you see on YouTube or TikTok, there's this belief that like this guy must really knows what he's doing because he can guarantee it. And it's like, but he can't.
No.
Like I'm not saying he doesn't know what he's doing, and I'm not saying he's super smart, but if he could guarantee it, we'd have heard about it by now.
Yeah, there's two things that I want to add to this conversation. One is like just specifically around even just SEO right now, right? Like I talked to someone that's been in SEO for 20 years. The Google update came out, helpful content came out, and he's like, I've lost everything that I knew before. Like literally, it's like almost starting from scratch because none of the rules apply anymore. And so if there's anyone online saying they understand SEO, like it's false. Like no one understands it right now. No one knows where it's headed. No one like you know what I mean? Like they might have inferences, but no one actually understands what's going on right now in that whole world, right? And so you have the transparent people like, look, we should continue doing the same thing that we do, put out helpful content, do good things, and hopefully over time it works. And as Google does give us more information, we'll make shifts. But right now, no one knows anything. So anyone that's like, I'm going to be able to rank you in 6 months, just talking to a customer, it's not true. It's just they have no idea how. So that doesn't work. And then the other one is I see people all the time on LinkedIn and Twitter and all this stuff being like, oh, I had an 8-figure exit and all this stuff, and now I'm going to give you this blueprint. But underneath the surface, like there's stuff going on there where it's like, oh yeah, but that 8-figure thing had a buyout clause and it depended on the performance of this certain thing, and so therefore you didn't really get paid on that. But now you're a guru of this. It's like I don't like that kind of messaging, and I'm trying to find more ways that I can be more and more transparent around my business. Like there's ups and downs in business at the end of the day, and when I'm talking ups and downs, like you could financially be totally fine. But there's all this whole mental aspect to running business, like getting overwhelmed, having too many things, needing to solve different operational tasks. That's just part of business. Like we're all going through the same thing. And so what I think business owners kind of like fall to is, well, they want someone that can promise a guarantee or give them an outcome that is confident and secure. But like the world that we play in business, everything is uncertain. Everything is uncertain and you have no control of anything. You can just do the best thing you can do today and hope that it's the right decision and just like keep changing, but you're never going to know the outcome and you're always going to be uncertain. So there's like this like piece that I'm trying to get with that and just be comfortable in the uncertainty and just do the best I can in the moment, just keep shifting as I need to do well.
Yeah. And again, another sports analogy, but I always tell my clients, like, we got to make the playoffs before you can win the championship. So just focus on winning more than you're losing. Like you just got to win more than you lose right away to kind of get your bearings about you. And even like you'd mentioned Google and a lot of those changes that affect SEO, people have to realize that like Google, Facebook, all these places are their businesses too. So they're not going to give you the playbook. They're not going to give you the easy button. They're not going to give you all the ways to cut corners, find the loopholes, and basically make it so that you can, navigate their world without paying for it. So as they're making these changes, these shifts, and doing what they're doing it for their own benefit. And yeah, we might catch back up and we might be able to apply those same practices. But for now, you got to kind of wait and see what's going to happen when the dust settles. What does this landscape now look like that they've hit reset? And because that's what they're doing. They're not doing us any favors, but it's not about us. It's about their business.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, if you look at it, if they did something and it changed and it had unintended consequences and it still affected the good businesses, like I know a lot of good businesses that got affected. And these are people that like take their own photos, they write their own things, like everything's handwritten. There's no AI in there, like, and they still got massively hit. And we're talking people that have spent, $500,000 budget just on content in a year, right? And so you look at these things and this is just the world that you're kind of in, and you want to have things diversified. Like, that's what I always say. Have it diversified so you're not relying on just one channel for things. If a channel does do well for you, redistribute to other channels so that you can actually build a brand that has multiple touch points rather than just one touch point.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Last thing I want to throw in there is that, and I would like your perspective on this as well, is that people have to realize that these tactics, these strategies, these scenarios, all these different things that we've been talking about here for the last 30 minutes, they all affect and apply to Nike, to Bob's Plumbing. Like, we all play by the same kind of game. And yeah, it might be a little different based off of size, budget, target audience, whatnot. But like, to your point, like what Google did, it affected everybody. It affected Nike too. Nike felt it just like everybody else did. Yeah. So knowing that, like, think about what those businesses do. Like you said, they pivot, they redistribute, they regroup, they shift, they do those different things to sustain as much of what they've got in their market value and all that stuff. They try to maintain as much of that as possible until they get back on track.
Yeah, 100%. They all get hit the same thing. And when you look at the bigger companies, they just had more time to put in the systems in place to run a lot of stuff, right?
Right. More resources, more everything, but we all feel it.
Yeah, everyone feels it. 100%.
Yeah. So, dude, tell me a little bit more where we can, kind of follow you and learn more about CJAM Marketing, kind of keep up with your stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the two biggest places, one would be on my LinkedIn. So if you're looking at Behdad Jamshidi, if you search that, you'll find me on LinkedIn. My website is probably the next best place to find me, is www.cjammarketing.com. If you actually go to the bottom of the page, there's a resource section where you can get questions to ask different agencies and stuff like that as a business owner, so that you can go into meetings more prepared. And there's going to be more lead magnets and useful resources there as well. I have 21 questions to ask before, during, and after meeting an agency to kind of help businesses make solid agency decisions and potentially work with ones like yours, Mike.
Awesome. I appreciate you being on the podcast, and we will include all those links too in like the show notes and whatnot. So we'll make sure that's easy for everybody to find. But again, thank you for being on the podcast, your insight, and yeah, best of luck to you.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
If you'd like to learn more about CyberDogs, share your thoughts, or even ask a specific question about this episode and/or the brand retro mindset, contact me directly at mike@cyberdogsmarketing.com.